Hi you guys! So today I'm going to talk about my 13 and a half years being vegan, and I just want to be clear up front at the very beginning of the video that I am not a medical professional and I'm not here to give advice. I'm just sharing my experience, and if you're looking for medical advice, I urge you to seek out a medical professional or look to learn from plant-based doctors, and I'll link below some of my favorite plant-based doctors in the description box of this video. So if you've been following me for a while, you might know that my journey started when I was about 19 years old. I became vegan, which I now consider to be plant-based at the time, for health reasons. And my first exposure to veganism was through raw foods. So I began eating a lot of fresh raw fruits and vegetables and avoided animal products completely from day one. I read a lot of books and just jumped right in. So I told my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, because my husband and I had been dating since we were 15 and 16 years old. We'd already been dating for a few years. And then I came over to his house one day, I think we were at my house, and I said, "Babe, I'm gonna go vegan." And he thought that was crazy, but he said, you know, feel free to go vegan yourself, but just I'm never gonna go vegan. Don't ever expect me to become vegan. And since I was doing it at the time for my health, that was really not a big deal to me at all. But over time, I started feeling better and better. I was eating more and more salads and fresh smoothies and just a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, while he was eating lots of fast food. We would go to In-N-Out Burger back when we lived in California at the time. He would get a big burger and fries. He'd get it to go and I'd have my own salad for dinner. At the end, I would feel so good and light and satisfied, and he would feel real like, oh, full and sluggish. And over time, he started to realize, hey, maybe she's onto something, and he started to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables as well. And his story to becoming vegan was longer than mine. Mine was definitely like an overnight thing. So fast forward years later, and I've incorporated many different types of eating vegan. And some people who are like new to learning about plant-based might not really realize that there's so many different ways to eat vegan. So yeah, just throughout my journey, especially in the beginning years where I'm just trying to figure it out and what's best and what's healthiest, what's gonna make me feel my best, and just like trial and error and stuff. But I've always had a predominant emphasis on raw foods for me personally, just because that's just how I started out, and I do really feel my best eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. But throughout the years, whether I was in colder weather or warmer weather, or when I went to the tropics, I began eating more tropical fruit. In colder weather, I wanted more warming foods, and after being in the tropics for a while, eating a lot of raw foods, I wanted to eat more filling plant foods, like cooked foods and warmer foods, like rice, beans, oats, sweet potatoes, stews, that type of thing. Overall though, my diet is pretty much a whole foods plant-based diet. I do eat some processed foods here and there, but it's not a central part to my diet. So for the first 5 years, I was really eating a plant-based diet. I wasn't actually vegan, which I didn't really understand the difference at the time. But then 5 years into eating plant-based, I watched a speech called The Best Speech You'll Ever Hear by Gary Yourofsky. I've talked about his speech quite a few times on my channel over the years because that speech literally transformed my life. It changed my perspective completely. It flipped my world upside down, and I became an ethical vegan overnight. So then it became more of a lifestyle. I'm an all or nothing person. I jump right in when I learn something new, and I love to read books and learn more on the topic and just keep myself open to hearing more and more about the topic at hand on both sides of the perspective. This isn't just about veganism, but everything that I'm interested in. So, title of the video: how has my health been over the years? I am significantly healthier, not only in my body, but in my state of mind as well, eating a wide variety of whole plant foods. Learning to eat for a healthy body and not an unhealthily skinny body did a world of difference for my mental health when I was a teenager and started eating plant-based. Growing up, I thought I needed to restrict my calories to be thin, and at the time I didn't take care of other aspects of my health either. I wasn't getting to bed early, I didn't exercise other than just working out at volleyball practice at the time when I was in high school. Yeah, so I went to bed quite late all the time with my friends, and I just really wasn't taking care of my body. And that's obviously normal, like college days and late high school years, you go to bed late. And so when I started to focus on my overall health, a lot of things changed in a really positive way. Once I learned to fuel my body with foods that will benefit my health, my mindset changed. And since at the end of my high school years and early college years, which I think I talk about in my vegan story with my husband and I did a video called Our Vegan Story. It was a while ago. But since in the later part of my high school years and early part of my college years, I had a very disordered way of eating, and I had lost a lot of weight. And then when my mind shift happened, you know, it kind of shook up my metabolism a bit. It took a while for it to regulate, but after a bit, I began to be able to eat until I was totally satisfied. You know, eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full, as opposed to this restrictive mindset. And I know some people say like, oh, if you're like come from an eating disorder and you go to a vegan diet, that it could be more detrimental, and it really just depends on everybody's situation and experience. But my personal experience has not been that way at all. I've heard some people say too that like, oh, it's just another way of disordered eating, like going from one restrictive way to another, but that has not been my experience at all. Eating a whole foods plant-based diet, eating a vegan diet has been so abundant for me, and it really has helped me to maintain my optimal weight and feel my best without even trying. Because before I would eat things that didn't fuel my body in a positive way, and as a result, I didn't feel as well. Whereas now, I eat until I'm totally satisfied and it does not feel restrictive to me in any way, shape, or form. But obviously, everyone's experience is different. For my physical health, I have great energy, a clear mind, and easily maintain my optimal weight without having to think about it. My skin is clear, and I've now had 3 wonderfully healthy vegan pregnancies and births with 0 complications or risk factors. And I'm now pregnant with my 4th baby on a vegan diet. I have gotten blood tested with each pregnancy through the recommendation of my certified professional midwives, and everything has come back in normal, healthy range. My midwives have always been amazed and totally proud of how healthy that I am through my blood results and just obviously the way that I am throughout my pregnancies. One thing is that there's a certain part in your pregnancy which they normally recommend to get blood tests, which is quite common within that time frame of your pregnancy to have low iron. And with all of them, I had slightly low iron at that point, but then with each pregnancy, they said, let's test it again in about 4 or 5 weeks. And when I retested, my iron levels were at normal range again. Another thing is that I've always had really lovely, thick, great hair, and I still do, no matter how long I've been vegan. And I always have since before I was vegan as well. So that's important to note that it was the same before it was vegan. But I know that's something that people consider a lot when they're talking about health is like hair, skin, and nails. On another note, I have never needed to take any medications in the entire 13 years that I've been vegan. And I just want to be clear, I'm not saying that I'm against all medications. If I was in need of medications and I, reviewed that with my medical professionals, I of course would be open to it. But I just have not had that need. And I am not sharing this information to put anyone down who has needed to take medications or who have suffered from health issues. I'm just sharing my personal experience because I get asked this question all the time. But does that mean my health is perfect all the time? No. Just because I'm vegan does not make me this superhuman anti-aging mother. I'm really not a fan of this double standard that vegans get. The general America is riddled with health issues, yet few bat an eye at their diet. Yet if a vegan experiences a health issue, it's very common to so quickly blame the vegan diet. Now, I'm not saying that there are certain times when someone's diet needs to be adjusted, and with the help of medical professionals, that is helpful. But I do think this overall blanketed obsession with double standards for vegans is kind of out of hand. Because if a vegan gets a health issue, it's automatically assumed that it's because of their vegan diet, where that's not the case for if you're not on a vegan diet. Had a miscarriage on a standard American diet, people will say, I'm sorry for your loss. Have a miscarriage on a vegan diet, people will say, maybe it happened because you're vegan. Aging like a normal person, totally considered normal. Aging like a normal person on a vegan diet, you're told you're aging too fast because you're vegan. Instead of considering the multitude of other factors that come with aging, aside from just getting older. Things like having children, breastfeeding for lots and lots of years, or especially mothers when they're not sleeping much throughout the night for many years in a row when they have multiple children because they get woken up all throughout the night with children. Or people who just don't take as good of care of their skin. I'm one of those people that just as a busy mom, it's really normal for me to just wake up in the morning and splash water on my face. Whereas if you ever go to get a facial and you look at the esthetician that is giving you the facial, her face is glowing because she takes such good care of her skin. They do all these different things in their morning and evening routine, creams and all different kinds of ways to help plump up their skin and keep it youthful. That attributes to the way that you look when you're aging. So if you're someone who just doesn't take as good of care of your skin and you just roll out of bed and go because you're really busy or for whatever reason, it's not a priority for you, your skin's not going to look as youthful. Which, by the way, my friend Yadi is an esthetician and she takes such good care of her skin and her skin is glowing and so youthful. I'm actually thinking about doing an ultimate vegan skincare routine with her. And we're gonna work together to get it to be like a totally vegan skincare routine through her recommendations. And it's gonna be really fun, so stay tuned for that video because she is really inspiring to me. And I think you guys would really appreciate that video. Another factor is just if you live a highly stressed lifestyle, you're more likely to age as well. The list could go on and on about double standards that vegans get about health, but these were just a couple examples. Listen, I think it's really important to be realistic. Health issues may come up here and there, whether you're vegan or not. I don't know a single person, whether vegan or not, who never has a health issue. Even ex-vegans, even people who stop being vegan over the years, another health issue will develop because we're not perfect and we live in an imperfect world. So I think it's really important to be realistic and not expect veganism and the right amount of supplements and the perfect diet to just make you superhuman, because it's not going to happen. Something I find perplexing is when people stop being vegan. And guys, let me just be clear. I have friends who are not vegan or who have stopped being vegan, and I love them just the same. What's important is mutual respect and friendships. But something I find perplexing when people stop being vegan because of a certain health issue is that when health issues arise later in the future, on their new diet, are they going to blame the now animal products that they eat on that diet? I don't know. I just find that interesting because no one's going to feel perfect forever. It just doesn't happen. So a lot of you might want to know what health things have come up for me over the years. For one, something kind of odd is that I always get chin pimples about a year after I start breastfeeding. I have great skin throughout my whole pregnancy and after I give birth and the first full year of breastfeeding. But after that year of breastfeeding, I start to get hormonal acne and chin pimples. And it continues until I stop breastfeeding. And this has happened for all 3 of my children. I'm not too sure the relation to that time frame. I haven't been able to find that much information online about that time frame in particular, but I know that it is quite common to get hormonal acne and chin pimples in regards to certain times in your pregnancy, giving birth, and breastfeeding experience. But for me, it's always at that same time frame, a year after I give birth until I stop breastfeeding. About a week after I stop breastfeeding, like clear skin. No more pimples. So it's very perplexing. But yeah, so that's something I've experienced. Just to explain about my history with my skin, I had acne in high school before I went plant-based and had a history of sensitive skin and acne. So it's not that surprising to me that throughout my breastfeeding journey that I have had some hormonal things going on with my skin while breastfeeding at certain points. Another health thing that has come up for me over the years is that I have pterygium in this eye, which is also called surfer's eye. So I developed that about a year after I moved to Hawaii. It's quite common in places with lots of sun and lots of wind, and I lived in an area with a lot of wind. So if you followed me a lot over the years, you might have noticed maybe a couple years back where my eye was quite red a lot of the time when I'm filming, but it's been a lot less lately. There's a lot of things that could be attributed to that, but yeah, so I'm really grateful it's not as irritated as it was before, whereas before if I would go in the sun and in the wind, even if I had sunglasses and a hat on, the wind would still bother my eye and irritate me. But I'm doing really well lately and I have not had an irritated eye for quite a long time, so that's been good. But that was something that I've definitely dealt with for a while. The other thing, like I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the video when I first went plant-based, that my weight regulated after a bit because I had disordered eating before I went plant-based. I had restricted my calories a lot and really messed up my metabolism. It took a while for my weight to get back to optimal weight, but then after a bit, it must have been like a year or less. It really wasn't that long, but then it regulated out and I now maintain optimal weight, eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I'm full. So that's me. Overall, I feel wonderful. I honestly cannot even imagine not eating vegan. I love this lifestyle. It's abundant to me and my mental health is wonderful. My body is wonderfully healthy. But let's also be realistic. If a health issue comes up, that does not necessarily mean that it's because I'm vegan that something has come up. Again, I just want to be clear that I am not giving out medical advice and just sharing my experience. But it is super important that when a health issue comes up to seek out medical professional help. And I just want to be clear that I'm not trying to say that no issue that comes up, whether you're vegan, could possibly be because of your diet, because that's just not true. But let's not be so quick to jump the gun on any kind of health issue and assume that it must be because you're vegan. Instead, there's a lot of ways to tweak your diet, and there's just a lot of different ways to eat vegan, and look to the plant-based doctors and see what they're recommending. These are the plant-based doctors that have been eating plant-based for decades, and they stick to their message and they're doing wonderfully. And so I really like to look to these doctors to continually learn from them. And I'll put some links to some plant-based doctors' websites or socials for you to check out. But in general, let's not forget, health is all encompassing. Food is only one aspect of health. I find that I feel my best when I'm low stress, when I get to bed early and sleep full nights of sleep, when I exercise regularly, when I get healthy amounts of sunshine for that wonderful vitamin D, and while maintaining healthy relationships throughout my life. I also find that I feel my best when I avoid processed foods, specifically fried foods though, like French fries and chips. Anyways, I hope you find this helpful, and I'll link below some of my favorite plant-based doctors for you to check out. Bye!